Star Trek, the ultimate franchise. These are the voyages of 3 veteran Trekkies, Rich, Ian, and Toby. Their ongoing mission? To explore the vast Star Trek universe, to seek out new perspectives and fresh debates, to boldly go where no podcast has gone before. Beyond the Final Frontier.
Welcome to Beyond the Final Frontier, a Star Trek podcast with me, your host, Rich Matthews, and my fellow voyagers, Mr. Ian Spelling.
Hey there, everybody.
And Mr. Toby Weidman.
Hello.
Now, this is a very special episode for us this week. We have a very special guest who is an actor, director, dancer, choreographer, movement director, now podcaster, and has continued to champion theatre and performance since becoming a TV, movie and science fiction icon. She's worked with Muppets, who can say that, not that many, and sported a splendid English accent in The Hunt for an October. Please welcome the Star Trek star who has always fought the good fight for strong women, single working mothers, and, importantly, redheads in Starfleet, Beverly Crusher herself, the always effervescent Gates McFADDEN.
Good heavens, I have to lie down a bit after that.
Right, you got to live up to that intro, Gates.
Well, really. I also, not only redheads, gray heads, white heads, bald heads, all heads, right?
Yes.
But the only correction I would say is I actually graduated from Brandeis University, but I did graduate studies in Paris with Jacques Lecoq, École Mime Théâtre. I don't know if you've ever heard of the theater group Complicité, which is a pretty group. Well, I studied with the same man as Simon McBurney, and Simon is a genius as far as I'm concerned, as was the man I studied with. So it wasn't University of Paris, although that does sound good. I wonder if I could get more jobs if I used that whole bit.
Should have thought of that a couple of years ago.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Obviously, we're going to talk about your career in general, what you're doing now, and the Beverly Crusher of everything, of course. But firstly, we ask all of our guests, what's your first memory of Star Trek?
As an observer or as a participant?
Ever in your life?
I think it was seeing the poster, the iconic poster of Spock, the captain, and the doctor. That was the first time, and it just was interesting to me. I didn't know what it was. I did not watch much television. I did not watch it growing up. I was always I had so many after-school activities and things like that, but when we watched TV, it would be more, the Jackie Gleason show, the Lucille Ball show. It was things like that. So I think it was when I was in New York City and I finally got a television, and I would see reruns and I'd see a clip of it. I never really super watched a full episode until I think I was on the cruise ship, which is much later. That's in my old age. But I loved the campy style. I thought that was really funny. What was so remarkable was seeing how they were trying to do something so theatrical in this little studio. And I loved the seriousness with which they were trying to do it. So I would read more about it, because you'd hear that was the first interracial kiss or something. In that way, it was really, I knew the significance of it, but I had not really watched it a lot, which was very true, because when I was, offered I think I'd already turned it down once, but then when I did this play, that's what I turned it down for. And I'm there, and they had me come back, and I'm reading the script now, whereas I hadn't read the script before, and I'm going to my friends, does anybody know Star Trek? And they're like, what? Does anyone know? Like, dude. And I'm saying, well, okay, so what is a Klingon? What? You don't know what a Klingon? And I said, okay, all right, just easy. What's warp speed? People were like, first of all, they thought I was the stupidest person they met for turning down the job. And then they were trying to inform me that it was life-changing. So that was very interesting. I was just culturally, not for the first time, completely out of the loop.
Well, I was going to say, I'm not sure they even really knew what a Klingon was till Michael started doing it properly. So just before we get into the actual Star Trek of it, so your focus at the moment has been it's been podcasting, has been very successful, and is there anything else at the moment in terms of what you're doing?
I've actually taken a break from the podcasting. I really got into it finally. I felt awkward in the beginning, but then I realized that the more you shine the light on the other person, the more interesting the podcast is. And I also realized that I could condense it. I didn't have to speak for 2 hours with the person. I could do 40 minutes or an hour, and then you wouldn't have to edit for 9 hours afterwards.
Yeah.
But I have a book contract now, and I'm in process. I'm signing a contract for the story for some comic books.
Oh, excellent.
Yep.
I'm a big comic book fan.
Good.
What kind of comic books? And is the book...
That I'm not going to talk about.
No worries. But is the book the comic book you're talking about, or is those two separate things?
The book is HarperCollins, and that's stories from my life. It's not pull out, it's not like I was born, March 2nd, blah, blah, blah. It's not like a complete memoir that way, but obviously they're memories. But some of them are also opinion pieces and different things. And it's, who knows, I do not claim to be a writer. I'm doing it alone. I'm not having a ghostwriter. So I'm struggling with this. Some of it I like, some of it I don't, and it's a challenge. I don't know why I do this to myself. I keep doing things that I've never done before, like podcasting, whatever, but I seem to always find myself in those situations, and I feel there must be a good reason. So Do you find those situations, or do they find you? No, they find me. Interestingly enough, just about every major career move I've had, they have found me.
Can I ask, what's the biggest one you found for yourself?
My love of design. I have 2 homes that I've done major work. I have a house in France. I did the electrical plan, the plumbing plan. I did very rudimentary drawings, and I knew exactly what I want. I think one of the things I'm good at, and it was true of my theater directing in particular, is defining a space where I want people to look, where I want the lights to hit, where I want focus to be. I think in terms of aesthetics a lot. I love design and architecture and visual arts. I wish I had actually had an opportunity to spend a lifetime doing it in a way. But I feel that there's an overlap with all of the arts. I have a son who's a violinist, and he's extraordinary, and the amount of work and technique it takes. But he was also an extraordinary actor when he was young. I think that it's about musicality. You see musicality when you see a certain abstract painting, you see musicality, you hear it or whatever when you're seeing a performance, but you even feel that the way someone edits a movie. There's musicality. So I think that's kind of the way I would like to be remembered by my family, is as sort of a Renaissance person who's tackled things that really I've not known that much about, but I've started to learn. When I was teaching, I had been already 5 years at Brandeis University on the faculty, commuting to New York because I was also teaching there, but I was full-time at Brandeis. And I was getting burnt out. Even though I loved teaching, I wanted to be creative, and I found a roll of 20s in a cab in New York City, and it was just cash. And I picked it up and I was like, do I say something? Somebody dropped there. I mean, there was no ID. So in my mind, it was like, it was either going to go to the cab driver or me. And I very selfishly just took it. It was $300. And then I felt such Catholic guilt. I mean, this horrible. And I went, okay, I have to do something with this to look at it like a gift. So I took a leave of absence from Brandeis for a semester, went to New York, and took drawing classes at the Art Students League. And I loved it. It changed how I taught. It changed how I thought about things. And that's kind of what is the most exciting part of my life, where I feel I've had agency. A lot of wonderful things have come to me, like I love to perform, but I was sort of pushed into performance by my mother at a very young age. So that was just something, intellectually I love it. I love ideas, I love philosophy. but I'm less of somebody who is driven, to perform. So anyway, and the podcast, it was Nacelle. It was Brian Vogt-Weiss who said, I want you to do this. I turned him down so many times. You have no idea. I turned down the book so many times. I turned down the agent who wanted me to do the book. That's what I turned down. And finally I said, look, just get me one publisher. I'll send you 30 pages. I can't do this on and off. Either they think there's something there or they don't. And I got a contract offer. So that was terrific. But again, I'm terrified because I'm not a writer.
I wanted to ask you about your son. You mentioned in an email to me that your son, when we had to delay this recently, you sent me a note saying your son was doing a solo with an orchestra, and you were there for that. How do you separate the mom from the appreciator of art that somebody's doing? It must have been a proud moment both ways.
That's a great question. It's really difficult for me because my mother lived vicariously through me. One thing, the parents, you feel the anxiety. Like if he's nervous, I feel it tenfold, which is like stupid, right? But that's what parents do. It's just like that's there.
Yeah.
So my big energy now is to make sure my energy in the audience does not screw him up. That's like my number one thing. He is so beyond what I was. He is beyond what I am as an artist. The discipline. He practices 5 hours a day. Then they do performances. It's phenomenal. They work out. They have a life. He and his wife. She's a violinist as well. They have so surpassed me that I look at them with just awe, to be honest, because I know I could not do what they're doing. I could not do what he's doing. If I had been able to, I probably would have a different career. I get so many things in life interest me. Like I said, like drawing, whatever. That is more of who I am. I love new ideas. That's why I'm drawn to experimental theater. I really like to be surprised and involved in something I'm not sure where it's taking me. Where am I going? How does that open me up as a human being? That's kind of where I'm really happy living. No matter what it is. I don't care if it's, architecture, like how do I want to finish this wood, This house speaks more of me than almost any performance I've done.
Where does the Beverly of it all fit into that, in the sense of you could have left it behind 30 years ago, but here we had Picard season 3, you still do the occasional convention. What does it mean to you to be able to occasionally step back into the world and then step back out again?
Well, several things. Number one, I'm not sure that it was the right move for me to come back. I don't know. It was a choice I made. I came back. It was Patrick who talked me into it and said, no, darling, it's going to be like it was. And it wasn't like it was. He had not told me that he didn't want to have the love relationship between Picard and Crusher. So that was a big loss. I didn't know that Guinan had come on the show. She took over a lot of the sort of counseling talks that he and I had, where we would have this personal, and he would unload some things. So I was actually felt quite stranded when I came back. The texts were very much for Pulaski. They were not Crusher text, because you have to get them in advance. And they were, I think not until I got something like Remember Me, which was a fabulous script. It was really a gift. I felt more used, and I felt, because there were so many things. I loved comedy. That was one of the reasons I auditioned for the role of Beverly Crusher. I had a choice of all three. I was like, I think I was really the first woman they saw, because I walked into the office, no one was there. There were 3 sets of sides. And I said, which role do you want me for? They said, pick anyone you want. So I picked the funny scene, which was the naked now Crusher coming on to Picard. And I just did it like an improv, it was like, and it was great. And that's what I thought the role would have a lot of humor, you see. So, and then she turned out to be the least humorous character in the entire archival, all the shows. But I'm doing a lot of conventions now, actually. And it's a completely different experience, because I think the fans are very different fans. The original fans, I was scared of doing conventions. I was the last person to do them. The first one I did was after they asked me to come back, I believe. Or had they yet? I'm not sure. Maybe they hadn't. I can't remember. But it was powerful because I had gotten thousands of letters. And that was the first time I really went, wow, there's people who really cared about the character. And that was a discovery, and that was meaningful because I had been, and this is something that I'm writing about in the book, I was stalked badly when I was teaching in academia, and I was very afraid of crowds. It actually was partly why I changed my name to just Gates instead of Cheryl. I had done a lot of work as Cheryl G. McFADDEN. I was really scared that he would find me. And so it took me a long time to relax with fans. And once I did, it's changed the whole experience for me because people are so lovely. People are intelligent. People care about the future. People care about the same things I care about so much of the time. I've learned how lonely so many people are who are caretakers in this country. I've learned how hard it is for the person who works at Walmart and who works at the stock thing, and then they're paying to get my autograph, and I'm like, oh my God, it brings up so many things. And I feel that has been a gift, which I never knew or thought was a gift. I didn't appreciate it. I didn't understand it. It intimidated me. And now I really feel the connection. Like when someone says, yeah, my dad and I used to watch this and they died, and blah, blah. And when they start to tear up, I'm like, and this is a 40-year-old person. I'm like, no, this is okay. This is meant to be. This is something that transpires. It's not because of me. I'm just the vessel. It's you and your dad. It speaks of your relationship. It's not about my performance. It's about what you all need and want.
I think that's interesting. I don't. So hearing you describe all your interests, and as you say, you want to be remembered as a Renaissance artist with so many interests.
With my family. I'm not saying the world needs to. Please, there's nothing grandiose.
One of the reasons. So I was. I remember. So I was like 13, 14 when you returned in season 3, and was over the moon. And was gutted. I didn't, like so many, I didn't understand where Beverly had gone, and Wesley was still there, and that didn't make any sense.
That didn't.
And it was just like, nah. And so then, from over in the UK, where the coverage wasn't quite as high, we didn't even know you were coming back. I feel like what you've talked about your interest in yourself as a person. I mean, there's always a fine line between actor and performance, anyway, in terms of what you have to work with, your tools. But that's always been there. Underneath Beverly, there's always been more to Beverly than sometimes the writing had, and that's coming through you, because you always seem like she seemed like a polymath. She seemed like as soon as you had the teaching the dancing and teaching the theatre, which again is a mirroring your own experience and utilizing you, but that was never something you went, oh, that's not expected. That made sense, and that's you as your experience coming through the character, I think.
Well, perhaps, except that I think that the writers would take something like that. I felt it was never addressed properly. For example, if you're going to have Beverly doing the coaching of all of this theatrical group, as if she must be that good of a doctor that never is the place crowded. She has free time to direct a play, which takes, right? I'm just saying. The thing is it's not explained by what would be my genuine interest in theater. There's no Ready Room, the way Picard would talk about things like what theater is in the world, a mirroring thing, and how you can, that's what I missed. Because intellectually, I had been in academia. I knew the reasons why it's important, even if you're a medical student, to learn how to be in front of people, to understand vulnerability, to understand just how to take stage. It's a fascinating experience, actually. You learn so much about yourself. But see, she never talked about it that way. I was just suddenly there as the coach doing it, and the character whose focus was on was Dwight Schultz's character. There was not, to me, a molding of it. And the same thing, there was not a way of talking about dance, what dance was to Crusher. So I felt it was superficial, a lot of it. Even though, yes, it was funny, I got to have input on that data scene. I got to cast the person who was the tap double. I got to add 2 or 3 little jokes where they changed a couple lines for me, which was extraordinary. So I'm very grateful for that, and it was so much fun. But I would have loved to have had something like that continue, where you're talking about it. I could have taught him different dances, which would have been very comical. You know, we could have done period dance. We could have done all kinds of things. So I felt it was, unlike some of the characters where there was a continuation of, let's say, Data's love of music or the cat or whatever. I felt, I mean, clearly the women characters were given short shrift. It was about either you were very sexy and, you know, aliens would want to screw you, which finally I got screwed in, you know, in Sub Rosa.
Sub Rosa.
Oh my God.
If you're going to do it, make it memorable.
Green-eyed orgasm. Oh my God. Oh my God. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
So I feel, no, I don't feel she was explored that much as a character. I really don't.
Well, something that we've said repeatedly, actually, we've said in the podcast, if you, not that I'm suggesting you should listen back, but when we talk about Beverly, is one of the things that was so gratifying about Picard season 3 was we're all 3 of us in full agreement about this. It was like, oh, thank God, this is a meaty Beverly. We get to see the romance, the legacy of the romance, but also potential romance with Picard, an embellishment and development of the maternal side in a different way. A woman of action, a woman who isn't simply, as you say, superficially put in boxes. It felt, and I don't know if that was because if that's the end, last time we see the character, that's a great end, and it was so much.
I feel it too. I felt that I would not have done it had I not believed in Terry Matalas, because it was very clear that I could be seen as the bad, evil woman who has a child and doesn't tell the man. And I'm like, that's not going to work for me, because the character of Crusher, whatever there was there, she was not someone who would do that. She had enormous integrity. She was a woman who would go with her Hippocratic oath over the Prime Directive. That shows she was thoughtful. She knew that she was making that kind of a challenge to the Prime Directive. So it didn't make sense to me, and I said, that's the part. But I think Patrick really wanted it to be more that way. So even on the night before we shot it, I lost a line that to me was important, that showed how my son had made me choose between him or Picard. My son saying, I will do it when I want to. That in fact, it was clear that Beverly had been wanting this to happen for a long time. And it was the danger element that had to be there. And that to me was the explanation. You know, if there had to be a reason for her to go away, it was not simply she's leaving everything she's done for her entire life. There had to be a very good reason. And it had to do with the safety of the child, to me. So I feel it was great. I think anyone at the space station, when someone gets sick, they have to go up, even if that's not their specialty, they've got to go repair the panel outside the spaceship, right? So you have to know how to do everything. You have to know how to drive the ship, how to do weapons. It made sense to me. It was a much more real situation where someone who was a command officer, the same rank as number 1, we were the only 2 who could tell Picard to step down, who had that authority. To have her just relegated to, you know, that's why I think I lost my job. Well, there's many reasons. I think I did not, and I still don't know how to politically. I'm very blunt. I don't have finesse. I'm very intense. You know, it's just part of who I am. Believe me, I've spent years working on this. I'm getting a tiny bit better. Okay. But don't hold your breath. But I just think they didn't have scenes between a mother and a son that had depth. It was the depth. I had no scenes with any other women characters. When I finally got them after complaining for years, driving them crazy, they were like, oh my God, it's her again. They were scenes that were us working out, or I don't know. I never had a scene with Tasha.
What do you think of those leotards when they gave them to you for that scene with Troy?
Oh, don't even go there. Oh, yeah.
I
want to read that in the book, Gates.
Yeah, well, but here's the thing. That's what it was. Yeah. And I didn't come from that. I had come from being, in the tenure track of a faculty, of directing, of having, it just, when we would speak up about productions and critique things, we all did it for the common good. We all supported each other. But when you do that in Hollywood, you have to be very careful how you do it, or you're seen as,
trouble.
Yeah, and
agitator. Yeah.
And actually, it was about making it better. But I was very naive about so many things. I really did not understand Hollywood. I was living in New York. I was commuting that whole first year.
Ooh, ouch.
Yeah. So I did not have the times going to the bars and hanging out and doing all that. I was commuting. I was still teaching. At any rate, it's interesting for me at this point in my life to look back and see, well, what could I have done better? There's many things I could have done better.
Such as
I could have just learned how to be more politic. I could have inquired about things in a different way. I could have been more aware of that, for sure. It's been a rich life. Star Trek changed my life. I'm so grateful. I really am so grateful now. I don't think I was extremely happy when I was doing it, because I felt the parts were I felt like squeezed all the time. I felt I couldn't really be creative. And I'm someone who really loves to be creative.
Gates, when we did our doctor episode, we were discussing favorite doctors, and I made the point, and my friends here completely agreed with me on this. We had a whole conversation about it. The fact was, you had more to do in maybe one episode of season 3 of Picard than the entire 6 years that you were on The Next Generation, and probably the 4 movies combined. How rewarding was that? I know you obviously there's other things you would have been preferred. There was this line of dialogue you mentioned being cut out, but my feeling was, thank God, we can see this woman as a character. We can see this woman having screen time, acting,
Oh, yeah. See, but this is maybe a good example. Maybe I've created an impression that I wasn't that thrilled. See, that's me. That's not the truth is. I'm glad you said that, because I don't want to leave the impression that I didn't enjoy. I loved every minute of Picard, okay? I loved doing it. I loved working with Terry Matalas. I felt he was extraordinary. I felt his vision of the whole thing. He was phenomenal. I have enormous respect for his creativity and vision of stuff. He honored all of our characters so beautifully.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not an easy thing to do. He had LeVar's character, everybody's character. It was phenomenal to me. So I felt it was a huge privilege to work on it. I loved it. There are so many things I wish I had done better on, but that's just me too. I'm super critical on everything I do. But the scripts, the possibility, the way he listened, and oh my gosh, that was so great of an experience. And then going to conventions afterwards, it has been such a great experience, because fans say the same thing that you just said, Ian. Like, finally, we see who she is and could be. And I think a lot of people who were young when they saw Wesley Crusher, they loved Beverly Crusher because that was a mom, and they really connected with that kind of a mom.
That's how I felt.
But just to quickly follow that up, a lot of us are also saying it was a great opportunity for us to see you really act in this character. And I wanted to touch on that because you had more screen time than you ever had on The Next Generation. You had better dialogue, and we got to see you actually act rather than be in scenes.
Right.
We really only had a handful on TNG.
That's right.
Can you talk to that for me a little bit?
Well, I don't know how. I mean, it was just, obviously, it was a very different experience, even when I would be in the scenes near the end where it was Geordi LaForge and Data and I were in front of the screens. I felt she was absolutely a scientist, a doctor. She was at her peak. She was never stopping and going, oh, but my son. She was like, till the last second, I'm going to find this, I'm going to do this, which to me is what you have to be if you're going to spend your life in space. You have to have that kind of determination. And that's what the great people people who do any great things, you have to have that relentless determination. So that was a joy to finally see that. I remember that scene in particular because it was different. Usually one of them was coming up with the answer. And Beverly, we were sharing, we were collaborating as equals. But Beverly was also, her mind was working and putting together things. And that to me was like, at last, finally. Yes, I love it.
Yeah, it was great. It was really, really great. And it's interesting hearing how you were feeling when you were filming Next Gen, and all of those things, because there's always a strange relationship which you've talked already with the fans and how they feel and that interpretation and what was there. And it does sound an awful lot like there's a lot of in spite of what they gave you to work with, but it can't be underestimated how me as a teenager walked away never thinking of Beverly as being small or diminished or not important. And that was what was, so when you get to Picard season 3, as Ian said, there's this realization of yes, because that's actually how I always felt about the character.
Interesting.
And she and yes, there weren't enough moments, but when you think about cause and effect and the deja vu and for me, the visceral moment in Best of Both Worlds when Picard's being pulled out of the Borg and Beverly's right there, and it's that teamwork, and she was always indispensable. I think that's what people missed with Pulaski, was she sort of felt separate from, very slightly.
Well, I didn't watch Pulaski, but I've talked to fans. I think what was important and groundbreaking with what Gene Roddenberry, who I did not always get along with, but I thought he was a visionary for sure. I thought it was a genius idea to have a parent and child, a single parent, because that was really happening in the United States at that point. And there were so many single parents. It's such a difficult role. I mean, being a parent, period, is a difficult role. But to have someone who was going to be a nurturer, as well as a love interest, as well as a scientist, top doctor, and a commanding officer, that was groundbreaking. And had that been really fully used, it would have been a much better lead-in for Voyager, for example, or Deep Space Nine. But what happened instead is I actually talked to a couple of writers who were not the top writers, but they were they want to pull back your strength because they want to save it for when the Voyager captain comes, and they want to have the stronger, the other characters in Deep Space Nine. I mean, look at what Sisko got to do with his kid, right? And so when they're saving things, it was just one of those things. I'm both lucky to have it and unlucky to have been right at that particular maybe time, but maybe not. It's just something to think about. I know it was important for me in all of the early episodes that first season. Picard would come in and they just have me walk immediately to Picard, and I said, I can't do that. I have to have another extra who comes in and I hand over the tool. You cannot just leave a patient like that. That is just, and I'd been in a hospital enough to know that would suck. So things like that, I got to do little things, okay? But at any rate, partly, you have such a large cast, you have to explore it. I think that my not being there, having to commute, made it difficult for the pilot. I don't know if I would have been more on the bridge had I been around. I don't know. So again, that might be...
But then what happened with Denise suggests maybe not.
You just don't know. What can I tell you? I know Rick Berman had seen me do the lead in a play in New York, and I know that he had liked my performance, and I didn't know he was working on Star Trek. I didn't know Rick Berman. But after one of my auditions, he pulled me into his office and said, I saw you in New York, and this would be great for you. And, it had nothing to do with the snobby thing about Star Trek. I didn't know it. I chose the play for $400 a week because I wanted to work with this particular director and Linda Hunt, and I wanted to do that role. I mean, it has to do with things like that. I never thought about money, career. That just wasn't the way I thought about it. Now that's all I think about.
Well, the check's in the post, Kate.
Yeah.
the question which really springs out to me is, you've already used Investigates for your podcast. What are you going to title the book? Because I love a good pun.
Oh, well, then you have to help me. Oh, come on. You have to help me.
I'll send through some ideas.
Well, you see, it's not just going to be about Star Trek, folks, and it's not just going to be about my little precious life. But it's going to be a mixture. People are either going to hate it or they'll like it. I don't know. I feel I have to. It's a terrifying process, and you have to just go, this is a gift. Just do the work and see what happens. It's out of my control. So
opening gates.
What? Open the gate.
Opening gates.
Open gates. Gates open.
Open gates.
Yeah,
Ooh, I don't know. If
that sounds.
That sounds
we
a
won't
little.
go there.
That sounds.
Yeah, I think so. You don't want
Sounds like a certain episode.
Yeah, that's kind of like the way fans would give me naked pictures that they drew of me. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, speaking of pictures, not naked. What the hell was the shot of you on a unicycle?
Oh, well, God, I can do a ton of surface skills. See, that's what I mean. I can walk a tightrope, not a slack rope, but a tightrope. I can walk giant wooden balls. I could ride the unicycle. I did routines on unicycles when I was a girl. I mean, I can go in a straight line and curve now, but I can't do all the tricks. Oh, no, I did, all sorts of juggling and whatever. That's what I'm saying. I have this weird, eclectic background. And
is that boredom? Is that fascination with things that you haven't done just to try to keep mixing it up?
No, look, it's like I said. Someone says, hey, I would like you to do a podcast. And I'm like, no, I have no interest. In particular, I don't want to sit and talk about Star Trek. So thank you very much. Comes back 6 months later. I really want you to do it. I want you to think this again. I want you to do it. And I'm like, oh, neat. No, that's what happens in my life. And I think that's one of my problems is it takes me so long. I think I'm like, I suspect the person. I'm like, why are you guys asking me to be on a podcast? I'm seriously like, what's wrong with my head, right? But I'm going, they're going to make fun of me. They're going to, I don't know what it is, but I keep saying that. That's what happened with Star Trek: The Next Generation. And people are going, Gates, you could have money to have a house, to have a kid. You've always wanted to, what's wrong with you? And I finally had to go, yeah, what is wrong with me?
But you did one of the single best Star Trek related podcasts when you spoke to Nana. And because we were very lucky to have her on as well. And that was one of those things that, as you say, Star Trek gives you a platform, a certain profile, a certain fame. But that podcast transcended it. You learned things about you and about Nana that fans probably didn't know, and the bravery of you both to talk about that stuff was incredible.
I was going to say, I mean, I've been listening to Investigates, and one of the things I've liked the most about it is it's not an interview in a traditional media sense. It is very much conversation, and you were saying you enjoy learning about the person that you're interviewing. What I think is really great is that we're learning so much about you as well during that process, because you're very open and talking about the things that interest you, and then does this interest you? And it's been really great listening to it, actually.
Right. I enjoyed it in the Ethan Peck episode that you did, particularly as well.
Ethan Peck, well, but the thing is I was much better with people I didn't know as well. That I do know. I know the things my own casts and friends don't want to talk about. So I was much more awkward. About it. I don't like those as much at all as the other ones. I felt surprised constantly by how interesting those actors were, how well cast all of them were. I mean, they have done a phenomenal job in this whole all new iterations. They're amazing. I mean, I've loved every single one. And honestly, I'm not bullshitting. I'm like, wow, these people are so creative. And it was something that I wasn't able to see as much when I was younger and involved. But like I, for example, want to ask what all those DVDs or CDs behind there. Like I have a pun, and I have questions I do want to ask all of you, but it's one of those things. I didn't want mine to just be an interview. Like, and like that kind of happened when I was doing Marina. It was just sort of like, I've done it today. You go on your own spiel. You think this is what they want to know. Okay, give them some interest. I think things are always more interesting when you don't know where it's going to go. And with Nana, she was so gracious to do the second podcast with me, because I literally went home. As I was driving home, I was shaking. And I went, okay, I did not at all know that was going to happen. And I wanted to deal with that. And I thought, okay, so what am I holding back that I'm not expressing? And that was, to me, a huge act of generosity for her to come back and do another episode, because that's where I really learned a lot about myself. I mean, Sonequa, there's so many people who absolutely surprised me.
I really liked the Jess Bush one because the artistic aspect of it, you really got into that. It was great.
Yeah. She's amazing. She's truly an amazing person. I mean, I really, really go, you just are so cool. I mean, you know, the fact that she's got so many things going. Yeah, it's very impressive. I'm very happy when I see the younger generations there. That's when I do feel kind of maternal. I go, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. We've got a lot of really superior minds and good souls who are.
That's the real secret to the conventions.
It is.
The assembled people are incredible. And just hearing you talk about your experience and then the reality of your life and everything you love, that's what you get. You can line up an assortment of actors from across all the series, and there'll be a depth of experience and expertise and minds. That's why it stands up, why people keep coming, because it reflects that best of humanity ethos of Star Trek. And I think that's it's interesting to hear you say that about your fellow castmates, because absolutely.
Well, I do think that's true, and I feel that when we hold back and just go into a performative sort of thing, which sometimes that's just the best thing to do, and you make people laugh and stuff, it's perfectly wonderful, but I don't get as much out of the encounter. I actually like it when I surprise myself and I can test myself and go, okay, you're not being truthful with that question. Let's just think a little bit more. Because I think people do need to hear us be open and vulnerable and truthful in our lives, because we are surrounded by so much that is not that way. In this country in particular right now, we are surrounded by so many lies and cover-up and things. I really do want to at least make an attempt to be more truthful, I think, is the thing, because it's harder, but I think it's more rewarding. And I mean, it gets exhausting sometimes because there's people have so much trauma in their lives. So many people do, but at least it's a forum for them to put it on these people who they're endowing us. It's much more than who we are, of course, but maybe it's an important exchange. As long as we don't start to think, oh, I'm that cool. Look at that. Because of course if your line is one person as opposed to 300 people, you have to go, it's cool. It's all right. Those people need to see that person now. That's all right.
We did want to do our 5 moments for Crusher thing.
Can I interrupt?
No.
Can I do, because this is not one of my choices, but it's sort of a bonus one, because I watched The Big Goodbye, which is a very early season 1 episode, and it's the scene where you first show up in the holodeck in your 30s 40s pink outfit with the black hat and everything, and it's a very small moment, but it's speaking to the comedy aspect that you were talking about, where you have a great little bit of dialogue with Data, and then you sit down on a bench next to a beautiful woman who is showing her pins a little, and then you slightly hitch up your dress, and then a cop comes along and says, "Come along, Toots." Come away with me, and then you start covering up your cleavage. In a very and I didn't know, was any of that improv at all? Because
almost all of my behavior in that was improv. I did that. I did the powder thing, was that thing. I did the trip down the stairs, was my idea. I loved all of it. That was, I think the chewing gum was the only thing maybe they had in.
Right.
But it was, that's my comedy. That's what I do. It's like I think comic improv love.
I always wondered, because I do love that scene, and I just thought that feels like it's improv, but it might have been scripted.
No,
so
it was
thanks
not.
for clearing that up. But that's
was
my one little bonus scene.
Yeah,
All
thank
right,
you.
guys, let's go out. Let's go out of order here. I'm going to go with my finest. Is Remember Me?
That's my number one.
Yeah,
It's
my number 2.
I'm going to start at the
It's my
top.
number
Actually,
2.
Yeah.
If there's nothing wrong with me, there must be something wrong with the universe, right? Or maybe there's something wrong with the universe.
I say it every day. Yes.
Right? I mean, did you know at the time that line resonated?
Oh, I loved it myself because I saw the double. But yeah, it's absolutely a perfect line, and it's absolutely right. Yeah, it was a great episode. And what was really good was that I was never denigrated in a way that some women might have been by any of the male characters going, no, there's nobody, honey, she just might be a little off. We've checked the roll call. There's only this many people on board. They never did that. They said, let's check again. Even you know what I mean? Even when I would say to the captain, no, but there was someone, he'd go, we checked and there wasn't, but you know what? We will do it again. That to me was so cool because that does not happen much in real life, or didn't then
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I loved that episode. Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm going to go with my bottom one simply because we've already mentioned it, and I debated because it's more notorious and infamous, than anything else. But I couldn't ignore it, which is Sub Rosa. Now, because you could easily dismiss it, and many fans try.
They did, yes.
Yeah, but you know what? As you said, there's something about that because you've had all this stuff with clearly this stymied sexuality with Picard and this desire for romance, and they weren't letting you explore that, and it's almost like it was like a cork coming out of a bottle. It was just like, oh my word, and it's enormously fun.
That sounds sexual, also. Jesus Christ, what's going on here?
Well, I know you can't help talking about this episode because
it's not Valentine's Day anymore, Rich.
I mean, it is such a ludicrous in so many ways episode. I mean, if you actually look at the lines, which I did at one point because someone was asking me to talk about it, there's no way I would just say to Riker, could you just cut all controls with no explanation why? And he just does it. I mean, if I had that much power, I would have been sleeping with every man on the ship, okay? What was, you have to commit. It was like so silly. So that's why I will let you have a heads up. So Brian Nacelle, he said, okay, so I want to do another new action figure of Crusher. I'm thinking maybe it should be Descent. And I said, no, I want you to do Sub Rosa.
And gonna have a little green thing.
And so they're making this Sub Rosa. I said, I want the pink nightgown. I want the green eyes. Because, I mean, you have to have a sense of humor. And Jerry, God bless her heart, she wanted to do an episode. She felt I had so little sexuality, right? I mean, the episode for the host, I was 8 months pregnant, okay? I mean, that was my romance episode. It was ridiculous. And so she did this, like, I don't know, what, gothic novel. That's what she wanted it to be, like a gothic thing. So, you just have to go into it. Thank God it was Jonathan directing, because, I mean, really, it was silly. Patrick hated it. I mean, when I first read the script, I was like, I can't do this. I was like,
how can he say anything? I mean, he wore those little trunks in Captain Holiday, surely.
Yeah, well, that's different. Men are allowed to do that, and they keep getting younger and younger women, but women aren't allowed to. I kept saying, why don't you, on Picard, I said to Terry, let's get me a lover who's 40 years younger than me or something. Let's try that. Let's see what happens. But anyway, I thought it was fun, and it's a cult favorite. Some people still loathe it, because
they love
true.
To hate it. It's great.
They love to hate it. Well, I mean, really, here's this woman's family, and she's such a scientist and all this. She goes to university, but they go home and they have sex with a lamp. I mean, seriously, it's a bit dicey. But if that lamp were available...
That's a merchandising idea right there.
Well, I saw you holding one at a convention a couple years ago.
Well, that's because this wonderful gay fan, I love this guy, he made one in one of the things, and I thought it was hilarious. And they were selling them boxed, and to raise money for gays, and the just awareness of gender differences and stuff. And I said, I would gladly sign these. That just to me was perfect, to have the little lamp. I love it.
Too funny. And then from funny to serious, I would go with ethics. You have a couple of really important lines in ethics. I know you personally think of Crusher as an ethical humanist. I've heard you use that term.
I do.
So what more could you get than ethics, where you have the line, when I look at my patient, I don't see a collective consciousness. I don't see a hive. I see a living, breathing boy who's been hurt and who needs our help. And then the other really memorable line from that is, you put your research ahead of your patients' lives, and as far as I'm concerned, that's a violation of our most sacred trust.
I believe.
And that goes right into the Hippocratic Oath versus the Prime Directive.
That's right.
And I thought that was a truly important moment for a doctor.
I agree.
In something called a federation.
I agree. I feel though that was how I had hoped the character would be all the time, because I really feel people need to deal with those issues. Yes, we need these miraculous advances, but we also need ethics. And how do you balance? There's always contradictions in everything, okay? So how do we live with these contradictions? And you have to hear both sides of the argument, and hopefully you'll think about both sides of the argument and develop your own thoughts and your own responses. And that's what people don't do enough these days, it seems to me. That we're either, it's like, that's good, that's bad, right or wrong, and it's not that way. There's all sorts of ambivalences. And so that, to me, that was a great episode. That script was very good about that. I also have to say I loved the host, because it asked the question, what is love? How much is physical? How much is experiential? Pheromones? What is it exactly? And I think asking that question is very, very important. And it just, to have the host, that just shocks people. And I had a reaction from, there was a group of lesbians who were saying she just wouldn't sleep for the woman, and that was so, And I went, no. Within the span of 24 hours, the man she was in love with and having an affair with, she turns out to be a scrotum sac. It gets put into her good friend, commanding officer, and she kind of has a moment with him. Then, how much can happen in 24 hours? Then it's a woman? I mean, come on. It's because it was a bit much for one day.
Confusing times.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't gone yet, but so unusually I'm going to start with my fourth spot rather than my fifth spot. Ooh. And it's the TNG season 7 episode Suspicions. I think it's got a really good guest cast. It's got an Agatha Christie style story, which I really like because I'm a big fan of Poirot and Miss Marple and all of that. There is a really lovely scene between Beverly and Alyssa, where Beverly's been stopped from her medical credentials have been put aside while she goes to be investigated herself, and then Alyssa just helps her anyway. And I generally got quite emotional watching that scene. But my favorite scene is the action end fight where we get Crusher roundhouse kicking the shit out of Rhaegar.
It was like the first time they would let me do it, and I knew to do all that stuff. They knew from the first season that I knew how to do fencing. I knew how to do all the rolls back, the flips, the whole thing. I could have done. It could have been so different.
And it was season 7.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
That's right. So yeah, I loved that too. I thought that was a really, really fun episode. It's just so interesting, isn't it? And I think I had gotten discouraged. I noticed this is where I could have done much better too. I did not go and just hang out with the writers and do stuff like that. And that is how stuff happens. And it's also because it was always tricky, even in academia. You can't go out with your same age male professor unless you're in a group, because people think you're having a date drink or something. I mean, it's always awkward. Like, I can't go in like and throw up my shoes and lay on the couch of Rick Berman's office and say, "Hey, how you doing today?" Or it'd be funny. It's inappropriate for a woman to do that, right? So I didn't know how to maneuver that, and I should have been more curious as to find a way how to do it. There are women who definitely would have done that, and for whatever reason, I did not. I chose to retreat on that, and I think it cost me. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out, because I know that it's important to look at what was my part. What could I have done better? But I do love those episodes.
The reason why I'm gonna go next again, because the reason why I picked my fourth spot and then this is my fifth spot.
But am I going to get the bronze now? Okay.
No, it's another season 7 episode of TNG, and it's part 2 of The Descent, and that's the reason why I put this after that, is because there are some links between the two.
Yep.
There's a shared guest actor.
I loved him. Yep.
Yeah. But also the metaphysic shielding, which is being investigated in Suspicions, is then used in Descent by Crusher, and it's Crusher's using her knowledge to save the ship. And
I love that.
It's not only, I'm mixed on this episode, but my favorite bits are all the stuff on the Enterprise with Beverly essentially rescuing the rest of her crew are stuck down on the planet with the Borg, defeating the Borg ship that is harassing them. She doesn't follow orders. She's ordered to go back, and she goes, "No, I'm gonna come back and save." And she uses her command experience and her knowledge from the metaphasic to keep the ship safe and ultimately defeat the Borg. And she's a real hero in this episode.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I thought. Well, I don't know why I said thank you. I didn't write it, but I think also she was a good mentor person. Like, she believed that young woman who said she did her work on it. She respected her.
Anson Tate, yes.
Yeah, she did not go, "Well, I don't know, honey, you're young." It was like, okay, this sounds logical. I think let's try that. I really believe that's what a person who's an explorer and scientific, you're looking for possible things to do, and it is a life and death situation for the people on the planet. And it is pretty hilarious, some of the scenes where they're on that planet, they're like on the same path so many times. The visual is pretty funny. Like, you're like, but that was budget. If they could have shot in other places, they would have.
And it's the guest actor is James Horan.
That's right. James Horan. I'm so bad at names, but I never forget faces. Yeah.
And then I would go with 17 Seconds.
That's in my third spot.
Yeah.
17.
Picard. I have a feeling that's the episode where the line is missing that you were fighting for. Yeah. But, it's arguing with Picard. It's talking about Jack. Yeah. It's discussing parenting. It's family and secrets. And, you really call Picard on his shit. I think the line was, "When the galaxy comes calling for you, you're not put upon by it. You love it. Don't tell me you wouldn't have walked away."
Right.
Well, don't tell me you would have walked away.
Yeah.
Right. And hugely important line, because it helps him realize how right you are.
Well, I don't know if I hope he realized that. I don't know if he did, but I think what's true is, when he says, "I wouldn't have been like that with a father, I would have been fine." Well, that was just season 2 of Picard that he dealt with that issue. That was just a year ago. I mean, come on. I'm not buying that, what you've said all your life. Again, but I loved that we could do it. And I didn't find it a difficult scene. Even when I disliked one line being taken out, I was able to play it in my mind. So, whatever. But I thought it was very good to see that kind of scene. It was a great scene. It was really fun to do. I wish I'd had a lot more like that. It was really fun.
I can't think of another character in the TNG universe who would call Picard on his shit when he's being indignant and showing regret and all that kind of stuff. Beverly's the only one who could go, "No, hold on a minute."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that, because she was look at what she's been doing there for years, where she's been just with her son. They've been fleeing from people and still trying to do good, developing, delivering medical supplies. She's exploring. They're going to places that are far, far away, purportedly. So yeah, I think I liked that scene a lot. Yeah, I thought.
And then later in that episode, Beverly shows her medical skill by saving Captain Shaw's life, right?
Yeah.
So when the doctor on the Titan doesn't know what to do, so you get the two sides. You
get the two sides. I think it was. I'm not sure that Doctor on the Titan wouldn't have known that, but I think I know the point they were trying to make. It's a valid point. It was just borderline a little bit. Like, it's one of those things that I know that I was the one who suggested that I press the stomach, because having had internal bleeding from accidents 3 times in my life, I know the signs of when it's internal bleeding versus when it's like gas or something like that. And so that's why I did that, because that's bringing my own life into the character at that point, because just something very simple and quick like that, and it's bleeding inside. So yeah, I that was, it was fun having a second son. I would have loved another scene with Wesley, and that would have been really good. I would have loved a scene with, seeing Wesley Crusher and what's it like when you haven't seen each other. I know they did that in Prodigy. I think there could be, that.
Oh, Will would have been there in a second, wouldn't he? For sure.
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, when I think of my own son, to not see your son, have him going off to other, I'm going to Mars.
My next one, we've already covered quite a lot of the ones in my list. So, but my next one's a little cheat.
Ooh, okay.
Which is to say, I should be wearing my directed by Gates McFADDEN T-shirt, which is now available. So
Genesis.
Genesis is my next Beverly's finest hour, if you take my meaning.
I get it.
Because that's I love that episode. It's so scary, and the makeup work. I mean, it's Michael Westmore is. Yeah.
Right.
And they would not nominate him for an Emmy for that. That's what he wanted, and they wouldn't do it. They wanted everything to go in the last double episode. And I mean, he did brilliant makeup. He would have won the Emmy. Yeah, it was extraordinary. I loved working with him. That was my favorite week on all of TNG. Well, we had an earthquake, so it was more than 1 week. It was whatever weeks it took. And I love Brana for giving me that episode, which was not a normal Star Trek episode. Some people didn't like it. They actually didn't like that. It was too scary. I loved it. I loved the chance. If we'd had more time, I wanted Dwight Spider to come down this way, but they said no, we can't do it. And I said, can't we just do a rope? And I think I drove people crazy, because I'm sort of like one of those, well, let's do a play in our backyard, we can do this, and I'll bring props, and I'm that kind of a person.
I had nightmares about Marina in the bath.
You see, okay, so here's what it was in the script. Of course, this is how they had her. She's just beautifully naked with bubble bath in the thing. And I said, no. I said, we've seen that. That's the trope. What's really scary is to see someone who we love in their uniform, in the water, face down, and we don't know what's happening.
Yeah, that's genius.
In their uniform. I was like, I said, please, let's do it this way. And to his credit, he agreed and let me do it that way. That was not how it was written. It was written as a sexy thing that would have been in a lot of 8x10s.
Well, I'm glad he listened to you.
And she was a trooper. She was a trooper. She did not want to do it. She did not like it, but she did it, and she did a great job. And it was spooky and scary. I mean, everyone was so. Jonathan stayed in that makeup for hours. I mean, stuff took a long time to shoot and do, but it was a complicated episode. It really was. I mean, and we had the iguana. But that iguana was good.
Well, I was nicely traumatized, so it was effective for sure.
Gates, I want to jump in there with a hybrid of that, actually, which is The High Ground. Not the greatest episode ever made, but I'm just wondering the female perspective of that episode. it was also written by a woman and directed by a woman. So did you have conversations? Do you remember conversations about what a woman in that situation would or wouldn't do?
No. I just felt, again, I was a big fan of my going against the prime directive if it was going against the Hippocratic Oath. It's not that I'm saying that's always right, but I liked it to have that kind of an argument presented.
Moral first, yeah.
Yes,
first.
because
it was Melinda Snodgrass who wrote it and Gabrielle Beaumont who directed it.
Gabrielle Beaumont was tough. She was not like, I think she was more of a guy's guy. I don't know, something. She was tough on me. But, I really loved the writer. I thought it was and I loved working with Richard Cox. We got along really well. So again, I think it's important to see both sides of something. I loved doing the episode. What can I tell you? It was to me an interesting episode intellectually at that point, ethically.
I've got my number one left, and that's it.
Toby is a box. Toby, I liked it. I like it. Yes.
So, you might not have to tell you what it is, but my
pressure.
My top pick, and it's not only my favorite Beverly Crusher moment. It's one of my favorite scenes in all of Star Trek.
Wow.
Wow.
And probably won't surprise my colleagues, but it is horror related because I'm a big horror fan. And
it's got a dark side, Gates. A dark side.
Right.
Yes. It's the episode Night Terrors, and it's the scene in the morgue where they suddenly all sit up around you. I love that scene. When I first saw it, it really haunted me. I loved it at that moment. I think your reaction is brilliant. I love the fact that it's through your own sheer force of will that you turn it around and you go back to the reality and out of the nightmare. There's no dialogue in it, but I really love that scene, and it's seared into my brain, and it gives me chills now, even just thinking about it.
That's fascinating. That is fascinating. Well, I would love to hear more about you on that, but no, I mean, it's fascinating. I'm not a huge horror fan, but I'm seeing how it seems to be the most significant genre happening in film, and there must be a reason for this. So it's quite fascinating to me. I love, though, moments where it's without dialogue. I love those moments, be it in Picard when there's just the moment where we see each other. To me, that is my favorite stuff to do. I love silence and just...
You sell the fear. It's great, and Les Landau directed it. Always reliable.
Yep.
It's brilliantly shot, and what it tells me is it tells me so much about that character, even though it's a short scene. I mean, it's maybe a minute, just over, something like that. Yeah. But it tells me about her strength of will, that she's scientific, she knows this isn't a reality, and she works her way through it. And again, it's just, I think we've said it. I just wish that there had been moments like that.
Well, I'm just glad there was some, because I think that is what we need to do in this world. I mean, I feel it's so easy for us to be overwhelmed and paralyzed and not doing anything, with be it despair or anger, whatever it is. And we need to always find ways of expressing ourselves and being true to ourselves and trying to go, this is happening, but there is something I can get to, don't give up. I feel that's a really important thing.
What is a moment or a line that to this day you are still proud of for your character? And what's a line or a moment that you wish you had a mulligan, that you wish you could do again?
Oh, God.
That you weren't happy with at the time or now?
See, I don't think...
You don't live in that?
I don't live in that. No, I don't. There are scenes that I wish I could have done better acting, or I could have done less, or I would have... There's many things. I could critique my whole performance, but in terms of... like in Picard, I was pushed to be a certain way for the scene where Amanda Plummer was in her prison, and I'm walking around her. I didn't feel that would not have been my interpretation that particular way. I didn't think that was very Crusher, but it was the way I was directed. So, you go with that. I think the line that I think is the one that makes always laugh and think about it is truly the one about since there's nothing wrong with me, there must be something wrong with the universe. Because what it does is it just gets you to realize how quickly we deflect off of our own responsibility. I use it in a different way than Beverly did. Beverly was a scientist and she was doing it as scientific fact. I use it going, okay, let's just get real. This actually, it's not the universe, honey. It's you. So pick up the mantle. Do you know?
I'm going to go back to the big goodbye and where you first walk in and they say, "Oh, Captain Picard's getting grilled in there," and you go, "What, is he a fish?"
What I liked was her excitement of doing something like that and doing something with Picard. To me, that's the piece I wanted to show. That was it was the opposite of her having to be, the disciplined scientist. I wanted to show that vulnerable side, but that was like one of the only times I was able to show it,
And you even say when he said, "Oh, he's being interrogated in there," and he says, "Why does he get to have all the fun?"
I know. Because I think that's part of what's so fun about the holodeck. When we get so serious right away with it, it's fun. The other thing, because that would be, it'd be like Halloween, right? I mean, so fun.
That's really fantastic. I mean, before we wrap up, actually, I just wondered if there's any particular sort of musing thoughts on Star Trek in general and why it's continued to be so successful, and why, as maybe like we do, think it's needed now more than ever.
What Star Trek has allowed, and many TV shows have allowed, say The Walking Dead or something, is huge communities of people to grow, knowing they have things that they might not have talked about, like being fans of horror or whatever, being fans of aliens and looking into the future, or being scientific all the time. And there's a place for them, not to mention, of course, the inclusivity and the diversity, which is huge for Star Trek, certainly. And that is one of the reasons we have such an age range, I think, in our fandom. That's very, very enormous. We have people who watch the original, and they are with their grandkids, and they're all watching Star Trek still. That's what's very unusual about Star Trek, I think.
Thank you very much, Kate, for joining us today. It's been an absolute delight and a pleasure, and has fulfilled almost lifelong desire to meet you. So thank you very much.
Oh, my great pleasure, you guys. You're charming, all of you.
So please let us know what you thought of the episode and what your favourite Crusher moments or any comments you have about championing Beverly and her role in the Star Trek canon. Please drop us an email or talk to us on social media. Please find all the details in the description. Otherwise, it's a goodbye from me.
Peace, love, and logic, everybody.
Ta-ra a bit.
And there's nothing wrong with me. It definitely is the universe.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Final Frontier, a Star Trek podcast with Rich Matthews, Ian Spelling, and Toby Weidman. If you want to get in contact with us, you can email us on beyondffpod@gmail.com or check us out on social media. You can even join our Patreon at BFF Beyond the Final Frontier. Huge thanks go out to Alex Weidman for the brilliant original music. Please search Alex Weidman Composer on YouTube to hear the full fantastic theme and more. Also thanks goes to award-winning voiceover artist Cissy Jones for our excellent opening monologue. Find out more about her incredible work at cissyjones.com. And of course, last but not least, our brilliant artwork comes from the designer Russell Seal. Discover more of his work on behance.net/Russell Seal. Thanks again, and see you next episode, Beyond the Final Frontier.